Sally, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. I am Sally Lotz. I am a children's author, so I write picture books, middle grade, and my last book was young adult.
Amazing. I would love if you could tell us what your books are about.
My picture books are hard to find now because they're on a school app, but they are fun little books with non-predictable endings. We'll put it that way. I like to take the readers, go for a little ride with them. My first one was called, I forgot the name of my book. Jerry, the boy who cries monster. And he was a little boy who saw monsters everywhere, but nobody else could see them. And they were causing all the trouble in his life. And Jerry kept getting blamed for what the monsters were doing. And then at the end, I flipped it around and there was a monster who kept seeing little kids everywhere, and he was getting blamed for all the things the little kids were doing. So it was just a fun little ending. But I've moved up to my last book that came out was a young adult novel. And that one is a fact-based fictionalized story of my life growing up in a cult. So that's like my favorite project. Of course, it's all about me, right? But I have quite a few middle grade novels that I've written. And as of the recording of this, I just got a literary agent. So I'm going to be working again with an agent on my middle grade books that are, I write horror for middle grade. So it's kind of fun. Suspenseful horror.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
What inspired you to write your books?
I have always been a storyteller. And I didn't start writing for a really long time. I was in my early 40s when I started seriously writing for children, just by someone mentioning to me that I should be a writer. And I thought, well, maybe I should. I've always been able to make up stories at the drop of a hat because I see things, and with my kids, we would just make up stories really fast, and I just have that creative spirit. So most of my inspiration just comes from things around me. All my middle grade books, even though they're horror, I got the ideas from things that I'd seen or heard or read, and just went with it and ran.
Love that. When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Well, I'm gonna reference my most current book instead of my picture books and the unpublished, soon to be published books. I wrote the young adult novel, The Truth Is a Lie, for awareness, for the young adult audience, just to be aware of what others are going through around them that they may not know, because you see somebody who's happy or you see somebody who's sad. You don't really know what they're going through. And for me, my whole high school life, I lived in like this shell because I was so secluded from everyone and everything, and all my decisions were made for me. So, the clothes I wore, I would go to school. It wasn't me. It was, you have to wear that because that's what we do. It was the kindness of a few strangers who I wasn't even allowed to have conversations with, who just made my day better and gave me that little glimmer of hope. And also growing up in this cult, a lot of people don't know what it's about. And I was finding that as I was growing older, that people had a lot of misconceptions about it. And I wanted to show what it's really like to be a child and be a teenager and to live that life and understand but sometimes people don't have that choice that's made for them. So, and it's people are reading it and I'm getting the reactions that I was expecting. So,
That's amazing. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
mm, well, I was always writing as a little kid. Used to do plays. But what really made me sit down and start was um, going kind of through a mental health breakdown in my late 30s, um, because I'd had such a traumatic childhood and I had never like come to grips with it. I'd never dealt with it. I just kind of pushed it aside. And one of the things that my therapist was having me do was just write experiences. But then I found myself just kind of writing little short stories. It took it took about, I'm going to say about 10 years from that point to somebody noticing me and saying that I had a spark of something of creativity. Why was I an accountant? Why are you in accounting? You need to be writing, for that to happen. So I wish it hadn't taken so long. I wished I'd taken the initiative then, but I didn't know. Nobody encouraged me, and I was just kind of living in my own little world, doing my own little thing. So, um, I encourage people, if you feel like you need to write, then don't hide it. Share it.
Love that so much. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
That's a good question because I'm writing one right now. Um, and I have my own business as a writing coach. So what I do now is I get up very early. I'm up at 5 o'clock and I try and do my writing first thing in the morning. And then I do a little exercise and then I might come back and do some more writing. But I find if I don't do it first thing, I find everything easily gets in the way of my writing because we're really good procrastinators. So I try to do that and I leave my Fridays open. I don't schedule any clients or any events on Fridays, and I leave that as my free day to do writing if I want, or do editing, or do reading. That's my day. And when I was working a full-time job and had a family, I would also get up like at 4:30 and write, and then go to work, and then come home. And that was a terrible schedule.
Wow.
But I did
Yeah.
it because I was so passionate about it.
Love that so much. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
That's a good question. Um, for me, I definitely need headphones. I need the noise canceling headphones. I have ADHD and I'm dyslexic, so I'm easily distracted. Even living by myself, I get distracted by a sound. So I have to have the headphones on and I just play like a gray noise or the brown noise. I don't play music if I'm writing. If I'm editing, I'll play music. Um, I keep my space, my writing desk is pretty minimal. I have some plants on it, some candles, a few pictures, and that's about it. Um, I really love to write outside though. So if I can, I will sit outside. I live in Florida, so that's not always possible.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Ooh, gummy bears for sure. My favorite snack. Because chocolate I would just eat way too much, or cookies, but gummy bears I can seem to have a little handful. And they last a while. Um, beverage, depending upon the time of day. If it's the morning, I will have my coffee. If it's the afternoon, I will have my coffee. If it's lunchtime, I'll have my coffee. Evening, I will probably have a glass of wine. If it's after dinner, sometimes I write at night and I'll have a glass of wine.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Oh, I am so weird with my writing. I read a lot of middle grade because I write middle grade. When I'm not reading middle grade, I read Stephen King. I read Joan, I think that's how you say it, Joan Nesbo, who's Scandinavian. I read, I cannot think of his name now. The guy who wrote A Man Called Otto. His name escapes me. But I like to read, Frederick Bachman. I just like to read books from different countries, and I also like to read suspense. So that's why I like the Stephen King.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Oh, I read so many books when I was a kid. And I'm going to give it up for the queen, Judy Blume. Judy Blume, I was not allowed to read Judy Blume. She was banned in my house. So, of course, that made me want to read it all the more. And she always spoke to me, especially when I was 13, reading Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and answering all the questions that I had and seeing how normal I was, even though I was not living in this normal world. And her writing is just easy and real and not overcomplicated, but it speaks to you. So I think I have to say she's my hero because she's the first one that I remember really reading, besides Charlotte's Web. But
Love that. On that note, what books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Mm, yeah, The Velvet Room. The Velvet Room. I just remember, in fact, I think I reread it recently. There's like 3 or 4 books that come to mind. The Velvet Room, The Island of the Blue Dolphins, Charlotte's Web, of course, and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I would say those 4 from my childhood impacted me, all in different ways. You know, they're all different books, right? But they all
Love
have the
that.
same message. If you read them, the girl is strong in all those books.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Oh, well, Stephen King. Um, I don't always just automatically grab something. It's never been my way. But I did read all of the books. Oh man, I can't remember her name either. The alphabet series where she had A is for A, B, C, D. Oh, what was her name? She's very famous, but Sally can't remember her name. She passed away before she could finish the series, so I think someone else finished it for her. I want to say is Sue Grip. She was the only one that I would grab the book when it came out because it was in the alphabet order. I was like, I got to see what T is. I got to see what U is. But other than that, I just go and I browse and I like to see what piques my interest.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
What age group? We're talking about adults?
Yes.
Adults. I always say read what you like to read. If you like reading graphic novels, then read graphic novels. If you like reading sports, then read sports. If you can't get into reading, I've learned sometimes people have disabilities with reading, and as adults, they never get over it. Do audiobooks and listen to them. That's what I recommend to a lot of people who say they hate reading. I said, well, why don't you get an audiobook and listen to it? And then all of a sudden they're listening to all these great books. Because to me, it's still a book. It's written, it's the words, and it's however you ingest them is great. And I also tell them, all those movies you watched, that was a book.
Love that. Would you have a different, answer if it was for a younger population?
My answer for the younger population would be similar. Probably wouldn't say go to the audiobooks. I would say try different genres, read older, read younger. If you like comic books, read comic books. I hate that when I hear parents tell their child to get a real book because they just discourage their child from reading. So I think, there's a lot of things out there for kids now. All kids are represented, so it's really easy for kids to find books that they can relate to, and comic books and graphic novels, magazines. I would encourage that first.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Read whatever you're planning to write. If you're writing adult romance, you need to read adult romance. If you're writing middle grade, quirky humor, you need to read middle grade quirky humor. I can't tell you how many people, because I'm a writing coach, who come to me with something they've written, and I ask them, have you ever read a book? And they say no. It's like, okay. That's like writing a screenplay without ever watching a movie. It's like, so the best advice is to read and write every day. Just get a pad, a paper, and just write for 10 minutes and just practice writing whatever comes to mind.
Love that so much. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Usually it's that I grew up in a cult. That's the number one thing. And that I have 6 siblings. So those two things, they're like, oh, and that I have a son who's 35. They think it's usually the first thing though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone will see your picture on our graphic. I'm sure the 35-year-old son will shock them too. That shock.
I was of age when I had him. I was old enough.
Love that. Oh. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I would just say if I encourage people who want to write, just write what you feel like writing. Don't be held back by what you think you should write or what people expect you to write. I can't tell you how many people I come across who write romance, and you're looking at them and you think, they're probably writing a textbook. If it brings you joy and it then write it. And the same thing with reading. Read what you like to read. If you don't like it, don't read it.
Oh, love that.
Go off the shelf. Go and pick something on the bookshelf at the bookstore where all you can see is the spine. It's not facing out. Just go and try something different.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
The signed copy is an option. So I have a link on my website, which is my name, sallylotz.com. And if you put in the books, it's a link on the homepage. You can get a signed copy, or you can click on the link that'll take you right to the Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and you can get a paperback, or you can get the Kindle version. So I have options.
Amazing. And where's the best place for them to connect with you?
I am either on LinkedIn, or you can find me on Instagram. Those are the best places to find me. I'm not Facebook friendly. I'm better on Instagram. So it's my Instagram handle is Sally J Lotz. There's a J in the middle.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to add those links to the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you.